All right, and we're back with another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here at Lakers Fast Break. Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows. And if you can, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us here at the Lakers Fast Break, Lakerholics.com, and the Hoopheads Podcast Network, it is sincerely appreciated. Well, the Lakers, coming off of a great victory in Orlando, wanted to go ahead and make it 2 in a row. But unfortunately, after a seesaw back and forth first half, the second half was not the same as this. Basically, the Washington Wizards just essentially just ran the Lakers out of the building, and the Lakers could never catch up as they lose by 9. 116-107. Situation where in the third quarter, the offense just failed us. 22 points in the third quarter. In fact, second and third quarter alone, 20 points in the second quarter, 22 in the third. Just really not consistent offense all the way around. There were some bright spots with Andre Drummond, 17 points, 11 rebounds, but still some inconsistent play there. Anthony Davis getting back to somewhat of the Anthony Davis that we know. 10 out of 20, 26 points. Just not enough all the way around. I mean, Ben McLemore gave us 16, Montrezl Harrell 12, Dennis Schroder 13, Kyle Kuzma 11, but the defense kind of just did not give in today, we did not get enough from the defensive side as Russell Westbrook went for a triple-double, extending his own record for the month of April. And here today to talk about the game and Russell Westbrook's record for most triple-doubles in a month. He's a good man indeed. We'll start off with the man, one of them, that tells you a lot about Lakers history at Lakerholics.com. It is MagicMan. And Sean Grice, I will ask you this. How disappointing was today's game?
On a scale of 1 to 10, Gerald, I'd have to say right now as a Laker fan, I'm at an 8. It was the Wizards aren't playing as the record shows. Hats up to them. Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook, you do not want to play this team now in the play-in tournament, and God help the Eastern Conference contender that has to play them in the first round. Regardless of that, I still felt if we brought the defensive effort that we normally bring, the Lakers would be in this thing and we could probably pull it out with the AD back. But it didn't come to fruition, Gerald. I thought Vogel's substitution patterns were a little weird, even for him experimenting tonight. Bringing Anthony Davis back in down 19. I thought he would have waved the white flag then, but he didn't. We came back. It was 107-98. And look, we brought in Ben McLemore to make these big shots. And he needed to make that shot to bring us within striking distance. And what happened? He missed. And Russell Westbrook got a 3-point play on the other end. That's a 6-point swing, and that was basically the game.
That was basically the game. And Ben McLemore, you're going to get a lot of shots. 4 out of 12 from 3. Again, this is what, LakerTom was asking for, a high-volume 3-point shooter. Unfortunately, he's very streaky, and shooting 33% isn't going to get it done. But here today to talk about the game as well is a good man indeed. You got to go ahead and check out what he does on his 2 great places to go for his articles, Medium.com and Lakerholics.com. It is LakerTom, and LakerTom, like MagicMan said, you got to be disappointed in the defensive effort for today.
Yeah, our defense just wasn't there. You got to give credit to the Wizards. Westbrook, everybody wrote him off in that quad injury earlier in the year, and Russell's come back and made them eat their words. He's playing great basketball. He hustles on every single play. He never gives up. And another triple-double. The guy is amazing. Beal, perfectly timed shots here and there. The combination of those 2 guards with Caruso out and basically Schroder having a really subpar game really makes it difficult for the Lakers. it for me, everything is so screwed up because of having a low post center in there. While Drummond got his points and so forth, it just basically clogs it up for everybody else, and including Schroder, who just could not get to the rim. And they don't really have any shot blockers there. So this was one of those games where basically the Lakers mailed it in, and they took a loss as a result of it. The news that LeBron is coming back possibly on Sunday, if not even possibly on Friday, sort of struck me that the team kind of like had a flat game because they are just tired. They're just tired of trying to compete and stay in there without LeBron, while AD is trying to get his sea legs beneath him. And this was just a real disappointing game. I'm not panicking, and I don't think we're going to fall into the play-in tournament. I think another 3 or 4 days or 3 or 4 games, and LeBron will be back. And then the question is going to be, do they have enough time to really get back into a rhythm before the playoffs start? And, you know, the problem that I see is that they're going to continue to start Drummond, and I think that that's going to be a disaster when we get into playoffs.
Well, right now, as we see it, it's 36-26 is a record for the Lakers. They are a game and a half up on Dallas at this point in time. In the loss column, though, it's kind of concerning because they're only a game ahead in the loss column from the Dallas Mavericks for 6. Then they're 2 games in the loss column ahead of Portland Trailblazers for 7th. And then only 3 games ahead in the loss column for the 8th and 9th seeds, Memphis and San Antonio. So there's no way they're going to be falling down all the way to 10th where the Golden State Warriors are at 31-31. But I am concerned if this downturn continues and the inconsistent play follows, Sean, that like LakerTom has hinted, that possibly a play-in tournament for the Lakers might be in store. I'm hoping not, but we'll wait and see.
I hope not either, Gerald. I think what happened in the last few days, as I've talked about on the blog, has ultimately been our manna from heaven, our blessing in disguise for the 5th seed. The Dallas Mavericks lost 2 huge games to the Sacramento Kings. They should have won both of those games. If the Dallas Mavericks had won both of those games, guess what, Gerald? As a result of our loss tonight, they would be in the 5th spot. But they're not. So I believe that at some point in time, they may catch us, and we may be tied, and Laker fans might be a little concerned that you see a Mavs team in the 5th spot with the same record as the Lakers. But while I am concerned as you are, I still think we're going to maintain the 5th seed. I don't think we'll see that inconsistent play. I don't think we're going to go 10-2 over our next 12 like some people think. I thought if we went 8-4 in the last 12, Gerald, we could hold down the 5th spot. I still feel that way because, look, the Mavs have an easy schedule down the stretch, but they do have 2 big games here next week against the Heat and the Nets. And if the Lakers can win, and by the way, this game on Friday and Sunday are must-wins. So the Lakers need to win these 2 games to maintain this edge, because the Mavericks do have a little blip in their easy schedule this week. They play the Wizards, they play the Heat, they play the Nets.
Well, also joining us today is a good man indeed. He just popped in. He is our good man indeed in the Midwest right now, coming out of the good old Detroit, Michigan, or in the Michigan area, I would say. It is LRob, and LRob, you got to be disappointed with what the Lakers showed on defense tonight. Offensively, a little bit more than normal, and thank you so much for the thumbs up, Albert. We truly appreciate it. Always great to hear from you. But LRob, I want to go ahead and break it down with you, my friend. You saw some things on defense that were kind of concerning, even with rumors that LeBron's return may be just around the corner.
Yes. Thanks for having me, Gerald. You were right. Detroit, the 3-1-3 representing. But yeah, the defense was was a step slow. The rotations were bad. I don't know, man. I mean, AD, you're working your way back into shape, but he just, I think he let the team down, and his effort probably team, kind of feeds off of his effort, and it really wasn't there defensively for most of the game. So yeah, I'm trying to think of who played decent defense on the team, and I don't know. Kuzma was battling, but a little bit on defense. Dennis looked like like Westbrook was like, I schooled you in OKC, and I can take you anytime I want. Yeah, so wasn't a good effort. I thought Drummond was decent. He should have got more minutes. I mean, he was the one playing with the most life to me out of all the guys today. But yeah, lackluster effort. Disappointing. Very disappointing.
Very disappointing indeed. And again, we cannot continue to see these kind of efforts, or else we're going to be losing the fifth spot. And we need to maintain that, because I think it's going to be to their advantage to go in with a matchup they feel that they can win, and win confidently, against the Denver Nuggets going into that first round. I would rather not have them go into a playoff matchup against the Clippers. Suns may be a different story, because they may have some confidence going in against the Suns, but the Clippers, there always is that air of doubt. But LakerTom, I wanted to ask you this before we go ahead and get what you guys are talking about as far as at Lakerholics.com. And that is this. You see the inconsistency on the defensive end, but I also saw the inconsistency on the offensive end. What happened in that second and third quarters? Because they were gelling so nice in the first. And as MagicMan stated earlier, they gelled very nicely on the offensive end at the end. They outscored Washington on both those quarters, but they got slam dunked in the second and third quarter. And it not only was it because of inept defense, but it was because the offense was not clicking as well.
I don't know what Frank Vogel is trying to do with his rotations, but the rotations were just terrible tonight. It just seemed like he was putting the wrong players in at the wrong times. And one of the things you have to think about is all 30 teams that play in the NBA are capable of winning on a good night. And the Wizards are have the best record in the last 13 games of anybody in the league. And then you start talking about worrying about being able to be confident that you can go into Utah or go into Denver and take care of the Nuggets. The Nuggets are 7-1 since Donovan Mitchell went out.
You mean Murray?
Since Jamal Murray went out. So,
yes.
You just can't presume that everybody else is going to fall into the way that you want them to. And so you've got to go out there and you've got to win the games that are winnable. This was a winnable game. And the Lakers basically allowed them to continue to stay close all the way through. They didn't have anybody on defense who could stop Westbrook. They had nobody on defense who could stop Beal. So you've got two all-star guards there. And that's one of the things that the Lakers have been very good about, has been able to stop all-star guards. We've done that with the Rockets before. We've done it against a lot of teams, but we just didn't have it tonight. And there weren't really many defensive schemes. And I think that the pushing the ball that Washington did, and the way that they're playing right now, the way that the energy and drive that Russell Westbrook has become contagious on that team. They deserve the win. They played better, and when they were threatened down the stretch, they hit the clutch shots they needed to hit. Every time we got within striking distance in the fourth quarter, they had a shot to come back and end that. And then the other side of it is points in the paint. We got killed in the paint. I mean, their bigs were actually just ending up in the paint on small players over and over. I thought Drummond played a good game on offense. It still frustrates me to see a 6'10", 280-pound guy doing little flip shots instead of just dunking the doggone ball. But he's got some good little spins and twists and things to get the ball in. I'd rather see him ram the ball down the throat of somebody and really just dunk the ball. That's not Dre's game. He's got little flip shots and so forth, and that's how he's going to score. And this is a team where he should have scored a lot of points against him, and he did. But the problem that we had in this game wasn't our offense, it was our defense. We just did not have defense in the paint. We did not have rim protection in the paint. Anthony Davis has yet to make what I thought was a superb defensive play that reminded me of how he played in the playoffs last year. His defense has been very lackluster. He's been flat-footed as guys dunk over him. Although he did get that definitely was an offensive foul when Rui went into him on that dunk. So, it's just one of those games where you can't just think that you have it made. You can't just think that you've got the 5th seed in lock, that you're not going to get into the play-in tournament, that it would be an insult if you got into the play-in tournament, because you can't control those things. All you can control is going out there and beat a team that is a winnable game, and we didn't do that. You're absolutely right, Gerald. The next 2 games are critical. They have to win Friday and they have to win Sunday. In order
that.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah, Sean gets the credit for that one.
Sorry, Sean, excuse me. My apologies. But those are critical games. They're winnable games. We cannot blow those games. And I do think that we'll get your 8-4. We may not get my 10-2, but there's still 11 games left, so you don't know. It's very possible.
It is.
It's just looking like last year. I think that we were fortunate to be able to come in there, have 8 games in the bubble after being off for 4 months, and the team really gelling. Not necessarily in the bubble, but gelling when we got into the playoffs. I don't think that happens most of the time. And that's really what worries me about this particular situation as we head into a similar situation, except that we've got 2 guys that have got to get their legs underneath them. They're probably going to be playing in Denver in high altitude, Mile High City, so that's not going to help. And, we've got a mixed up situation in center that is causing our offense to struggle because of space being taken up. You'll notice in this game, too, that you didn't see Dennis very, very rarely got to the basket for easy layups. THT very rarely got to the basket for easy layups. And a big part of that problem, in my opinion, is not having Marc Gasol out there and instead having a low post center in there, just filling the lane up. And then the other side of that, the flip side of it, is the defense. None of those guys, none of the 3 centers that we have are able to anchor that defense. And frankly, at this point in time, neither is Anthony Davis. So there's so many things that have to go right. Listen, the announcers had it right when they said basically that you want the field, you choosing the field or you're choosing the Lakers. And the truth of the matter is that the Lakers aren't the favorite anymore. The field really is the favorite.
Is that you, LakerTom? Or was that you? Yeah, that was LakerTom. Well, right now, it is the Lakers once again losing tonight at Washington, 116-107. Before I go ahead and hit up LRob on this major question that's been kind of bothering me the past couple of days in regards to Dr. J, one of the greatest players of all time, one of the most beautiful players to watch, especially what he did so many fantastic things in the year. But he did say some things about LeBron here that I want to go ahead and go into before we head on out. MagicMan, you wanted to go ahead and throw in your 2 cents in with what LakerTom was saying before the break.
I did, Gerald. I understand where Tom's coming from with Marc Gasol being out on the floor, but I think defenses have now figured out that Marc Gasol doesn't want to shoot. It's not that Marc can't shoot. He can. He shoots 39% from 3. He just doesn't want to shoot when he's out there. So teams are scheming around that problem that we also have with him on the floor. So that's another thing that Vogel and the staff are going to have to contend with here. Because I'm not sure if Marc Gasol at this point in his career, Gerald, is a willing shooter, even though he might have to be. I'm not sure if it's been explained to him or if they've had any conversations about that. But if what Tom's saying is true, then Mark has to shoot. That's just the only solvable problem with the
Well,
center
he has been shooting. He's been willing to take the shots, and he's averaged 4 or 5 threes per game since he's been in, and he's shooting, close to 49% or something close to that. So you're right. Earlier in the season, Sean, he would not take those shots. I think after he got benched for Drummond and he got out there on the floor and he finally understood that, hey, listen, the only thing I can do better than these other guys can do at this point in time in my career is to fire the ball from deep. And he's been willing to fire it up there. So, it's just so many big decisions that have to be made by the Lakers with very little time and no practice efforts, no practice time to really implement them. So you're going to have somebody make a seat of the pants decisions. Last year, Frank made these decisions. And I understand all of the people that say, you got to trust Frank. You got to trust Frank to do what he did last year and make those perfect decisions on exactly what to do with JaVale McGee, exactly what to do with Dwight Howard, when to use them, when to hold things together and so forth. Man, this year it's a tougher decision I think he's got to face. It's what to do with Andre Drummond and having an inside player like that. And all of it is for naught if Anthony Davis doesn't come back and start playing center defensively like he's capable of, because he didn't look like, it's just like Lee said, there were several times where he was just flat-footed while guys are dunking over him. That's not going to cut it. So there's, the Lakers are under the gun right now. Now LeBron James can come back and he could change everything. He could all of a sudden give Andre Drummond passes that he can dunk without any problem and flush over and over. He can automatically, change the whole situation with his defense, the way he plays middle linebacker in there. So, but man, we're starting to string ifs together, if we get this and if we get that, and if Frank does this, and if Andre can do this, if AD can do this. There's a point when you string all of those ifs together that they fall apart. And, and that becomes the year that you say, doggone it, we could have won it this year, and this is maybe one of those but years for the Lakers.
Well, I'll tell you what, hopefully that won't be the case, but we are heading into a weekend where we do need 2 big wins just before we get into some really heavy games coming back for a home stand. It's going to include some tough games. But before we head on out and before we talk to Sean and LakerTom about what they're working on at Lakerholics.com, I've got a question for LRob. And this is something I've been wanting to ask you guys now for a little while, in a couple of days now, in regards to some comments that Dr. J, Julius Erving, again, one of the greatest players to ever play the game, one of the most beautiful individuals to watch in the air, and his creativity is second to none. He did some things that have yet to be repeated at all by anyone in the NBA. He recently commented, or recently made actually his all-time player list, and it got even more notoriety than Jeannie Buss in regards to her all-time Laker list. And the reason why that everybody was making a big stink as far as Dr. J is concerned is the fact that he left out one player off of any of his all-time lists, and that was LeBron James. And his reasoning was not because of whether he thought it was a good player or not. It was the fact that he thought that, he said that LeBron James is responsible for creating these super teams. Now, you could say that, you could not say that. That's up to you. I'll leave that up to debate as far as taking his talents to Miami and all that. But I want to hear your thoughts first off, LRob, on this. Dr. J, I have a tremendous amount of respect for, a basketball savant, truly a great individual, and a Hall of Famer deluxe, one of the greatest players of all time, no question about it. But it sounds like he's I know we talk about LakerTom sometimes being Clint Eastwood in El Camino, that guy get off your lawn type deal.
Hey.
Well, hey, I'm sorry.
I like Walt. I liked Walt.
Well, Well, he was the hero in the end. Let's put it that way. He was the hero in the end. But I think Dr. J's comments were, unfortunately, he was a little bit out of hand.
Who did he put on his team? Who did he have on his start? Did he just
to be honest with you, I got to check on it to make sure who he put on his list. But I know the big news, and obviously the ones that everybody was following, was keeping LeBron way off that list. That was the big thing.
So, I mean, Dr. J, like you said, one of the greatest to ever do it. He was like a Steph Curry, like a Magic Johnson. He changed the game. He was must-see NBA. When Dr. J was coming to your town and we didn't have all these games on cable, you got tickets and you wanted to be in the house to see the doctor make his house calls. A pet peeve of mine is I don't think the ABA gets enough respect.
Love that color of the red, white, and blue on it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they get enough respect. When you seen Dr. J and those Nets teams, those teams were really good. They were as good as the NBA in the mid-'70s.
Well, he's got a great team. Now, let me tell you his teams. His first team is Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, and Elgin Baylor. His second team is Michael, Magic, Larry, Karl Malone, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah,
that would be
all from a certain generation.
Sounds like he's going by eras then. But anyway, you can't blame. I mean, I recall when Doc was on the Sixers that they ended up getting George McGinnis. And they had Doc and they had McGinnis and they had a really, really, really good team. They had Doug Collins, who was a really good player. They had World B. Free. They had a great team. So, and of course, Lakers had super teams. Yes, LeBron did create that type of atmosphere. But you know what? That was almost, 10 years ago? At some point, you got to let it go. The man has done enough to prove that he is certainly one of the top 4 or 5 players to ever play, if not the greatest, before it's all said and done. So we'll see how he finished writing the final chapters to his book. But at some point you got to get over that and move forward. So I know Doc is old school and he's hanging on to that. But that's a little bit out of bounds to me. But let me say this about Tom's comment. I do want to follow up on that. I agree with you that Vogel has a lot on his plate now that he didn't have last year. You got so many different moving parts last year. I think the only person he had to work in was Keith last year. He had the same team all year, didn't have his big injury problems. So he's got his challenges cut out for him. Their defense was usually on a string last year, and it has been good this year, but now it looks so disjointed now. I mean, you got not only working in Dre, you got to try to figure out McLemore, who, you know what, I mean, I know Tom loves his shooting, but boy, first time he makes a great, correct, just play solid defense. He gets backdoor as soon as he gets in the game. It's like, come on. Anyway, but Vogel's got a lot to work out, and you appreciate Caruso in games like this when you don't see just a guy out there doing the basic, fundamental stuff, making smart plays. You miss a guy like that, and it shows in games like this. So I'll get off my soapbox now. But out of bounds, Doc. Bad call.
Well said, my friend. Well said. Go ahead, Sean.
I was gonna say, Gerald. LeBron's him. I think if you ask most basketball historians and most basketball junkies, you could go by eras. But I mean, if we were talking about the top 5, top 10, LeBron's on anyone's list. Who's
except for Dr. J's.
Yeah, obviously, right? So, it's disappointing. You know, he had a great start to his career as a Virginia Squire. You know, George Gervin talks about how the Iceman talks about how the Doc schooled him on basketball and how to be a pro.
Ice under his knees.
Yeah. And, you know, he's an ABA champion. He's an NBA champion. He's won MVPs in both leagues. I believe he's the only player to accomplish both of those feats. He's
Rick Barry. Rick Barry may have. Didn't Barry win? I know he won an ABA MVP.
He didn't win a championship in the ABA. Rick didn't.
No, he won with the Golden State Warriors. I don't know if he won a NBA. I'll look that up.
No, I don't think Oakland won a championship. with them. I could be
The
wrong.
Oakland Oaks.
No. They Gold State won a championship.
Yeah, no, he was on Oakland. I mean, in Oakland.
He was in the
Oh
Oakland
yeah. Of course. Okay. Go ahead, Sean.
Anyway,
Finish up.
sorry, Jared. Yeah, regardless, I think it was a little out of bounds, but hey, he's stuck in his ways. I just did some research today, Gerald, and I found out, wouldn't you know, Moses Malone was a free agent, and who did he sign with again? Oh, that's right. He signed with the Philadelphia 76ers, who already had a loaded team. So, I mean, he wants to talk about super teams. He was on, like Lee was saying, he was on one in the ABA. He was on one in the NBA. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, before Moses even got to Philly, Dr. J had gotten to the finals, but he couldn't climb the mountain without Moses.
Yeah, he lost three finals to Portland 77 and the Lakers in 80 and 82. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And
they also left off another player from the current era that I think is among the top 10 players in the league history, which is Steph Curry. You can take 10 guys from back in that era, but there wasn't a single guy that played after.
Okay. Well, this is going to get into an all-day debate. Again, if we talk about greatest Lakers and greatest basketball players, those are two podcasts for two separate days, and that's 2 hours right there of content I want to save for the summer. That's definitely when we're going to need it. So right here at the Lakers Fast Break. I do want to thank Albert once again for the thumbs up and his great comments, plus Vincent. I want to thank you so much for your great comments. Yes, we are eagerly anticipating LeBron's return. But before we head on out, LakerTom, I know you're working on some stuff. MagicMan as well. LRob and I are eager to comment on it at Lakerholics.com. So LakerTom, what you working on at Lakerholics.com?
Well, I was hoping for a big game from Dennis Schroder because I was working on a Dennis Schroder article.
See, that was the curse right there.
Unfortunately, Dennis didn't have a game. No, one of the things that I've been looking at is I've been looking at Dennis's production every month. And the two areas that I've really always had concerns about Dennis were his three-point shooting and his assist-to-turnover ratio, because he's never been over 2. And just to be a capable point guard, you've got to do at least have a ratio of at least 2 assists to every turnover, and ideally 3 assists to a turnover. So I went back, I'm looking in my mind and looking in my history and saying, Dennis's ability to get to the rim is something that's really special. I don't know of another player in the league who can, on speed and quickness and change of pace, get layups like Dennis can. It's really an exceptional talent. And then if you combine that with the physical talent of Talen Horton-Tucker to be able to get to the rim in a whole different type of style where it's a power move and so forth. And you look at those two guys and you figure that this is one of the problems that the Lakers have in their whole lineup, which is that they have a whole bunch of guys who can get to the rim, but they need a bunch of guys out there also who can shoot threes to open up the floor, and they don't have those. Talen's weakness is a 3 right now. One of Dennis's weaknesses is a 3 right now. So I started looking at comps, and the obvious comp, and if you ask any basketball historian, Sean, for the obvious comp to Dennis Schroder, and it's Tony Parker. As another guy who basically had some problems with his assist-to-turnover ratio. Never could seem to get more than 4 or 5 assists per game and always had at least 2 turnovers per game. Shot a 32%, I think, career three-point shooter. But another guy who, if you give him a step, he'll beat you to the rim and he'll make a layup and he'll finish as well as a guy who dunks the ball on drives and so forth. So the last month, Dennis Schroder has played the kind of basketball that is probably worth 4 years and $100 million for the Lakers. How well he does in the playoffs, if he can continue to play that well. And the big thing is his turnover ratio. He's really upped his assists to 7 or 8 per game, and he's lowered his turnovers or kept them down around 2. So he's well over 3 for the month of April, and he's shooting 39% from deep. So I think that there's an opportunity that if the Lakers do win a championship this year, Dennis Schroder is going to be a big part of that. And if he does that, the Lakers would be foolish to let him walk for nothing.
And as Bobby Marks from ESPN just stated today on Twitter, because Dennis Schroder just played his 58th game today, and if the Lakers do end up winning the championship, he'll be $500,000 richer because of it. So, and actually $250 if they just make the finals. But then again, if you're there, you might as well win. So there you go, indeed. Once again,
that's a good sign for the Lakers when you look at the whole picture, because imagine that, Tony Parker won 4 championships, 2003, 2005, 2007, and then came back in 2014 with the best season that he'd had. If Dennis Schroder could win 4 championships for the Lakers, that would be quite an accomplishment. And he's young enough. He's young enough to do it, and he's improving. And they're saying the right things. LeBron and AD are telling them to continue to be just as aggressive when they come back. And that could be an important element of it. That's one of the decisions, for example, that Vogel's got to decide where the ball is going to be. Who's going to have the ball? Are you going to just give it to LeBron and just change how you totally played all year long? Or are you going to give it to Caruso and let LeBron be more of a scorer this time, working off of the ball, getting him passes in the middle and so forth? Like I said, Frank's got a challenge this year. We'll find out. And I thought he should have got Coach of the Year last year, but obviously they don't count the playoffs in the voting for that particular award. It'll be interesting to see how he does this year. If he can repeat the quality of job that he did as a head coach for the Lakers last year in the playoffs, then the Lakers still have a chance.
Well, the Lakers do have very much of a chance, I believe. And LeBron is coming around the corner. I hear he's getting closer and closer to a magical start date. It could be as early as Friday. Could be early as Sunday. Who knows? But I will tell you what's happening on Friday is that we will be back on Friday in some form or fashion. I will be doing it from remote, so we'll see how that goes. It may be the worst sounding podcast ever. It may be the best. We'll wait and see. But again, the Lakers will be playing on Friday, so you want to make sure you're tuning into us right here at the Lakers Fast Break. But if you have any questions for us, LakersFastBreak@yahoo.com. Also as well at LakerTom. Sean Grice is also on Twitter. Sean, what is I always forget your Twitter handle.
Yeah, well, you know what, Gerald? I deactivated an account.
See, there you go.
A new one.
Okay, because why not be like, how about this? I'll give you a good at LakerTom's at LakerTom's ghost handle. I don't know. At LakerTom's phone. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, I'll figure.
I'll add that into the insult about comparing me with.
Oh, it's all in good fun. It's all in good fun. It's all in good fun. I got nothing but love for you, LakerTom. But somebody's got to keep you on your toes while Jamie Sweet's not here. So he's the guy that's supposed to do it. But
he does it on the blog.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
He'll agree. He'll disagree with anything I say. Sky is blue. Jamie will come back and say, no, it's not.
Yeah, just because. But you got to check out those conversations today at Lakerholics.com. Want to go ahead and thank so much LRob, Sean, MagicMan, LakerTom for being on today's show. If you have any questions, once again, LakersFastBreak@yahoo.com or at LakersFastBreak or at LakerTom on Twitter, or whenever MagicMan decides to go ahead and activate his LakerTom clone account. We'll wait and see. But again, the Lakers did come up just a tad short, 116-107. We will be back here on Friday after the game against Sacramento. It's a home game, so it'll be late. So hopefully they'll give me plenty of time to set up shop in a remote location. Won't say where yet, but it'll be in a remote location. But I will say this, it is a great time indeed. Once again, thank you so much to LRob, LakerTom, and MagicMan. Also, give a big shout out to the Hoopheads Podcast Network. Please catch some of the great shows. And then also our show is on Dash Radio every Sunday at 4 a.m. So please go ahead and check us out there. But again, the Lakers lose 116-107, and we'll be back on Friday night to start your weekend. Hopefully with LeBron James. We're keeping our fingers crossed. LeBron James may be coming back on the way this weekend, and we'll tell you about it. We'll tell you all about it coming up this weekend right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.